Hey everyone, welcome to Logan's Mosh Pit. Glad to have you here. Do me a favor, please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a lot for tuning into a new episode of Rock and Read. Today we will continue our journey through the book It's So Easy and Otherwise by Duff McKagan. We're on chapter 21. Chapter 21 is called Steel Wheels Tour. Let's see what happens next. Back in LA, we retreated to our houses. They provided privacy for each of us to pursue his own brand of debauchery. Though things with Mandy continued to get uglier and uglier after I returned home, I pulled back a bit from the extremes of Chicago. I rode a mountain bike here and there in a token of effort to be healthy. I would take our dog Chloe for walks. I tried not to drink so much and rarely did coke or took pills. I would hang out with Slash from time to time, but things were getting dark up there at his house in Laurel Canyon. One day, he pulled out a stack of Polaroid pictures he had taken around his house. "Duff, look at these," he said. "It's some of those Martian bugs I was telling you about. They're infiltrating my house and watching me all the time." There was, of course, nothing on these Polaroids, but he kept flipping through the stack and pointing. "See, there's another one, right there in the corner." Stephen was careening off the deep end too. He had bought a house just 3 blocks from mine, and as a result, I was able to check on him more often. What that amounted to in practical terms was watching helplessly as his crack and heroin use escalated. It got so bad, and he seemed so incapable of reining it in, that at one point I found out where his drug dealer lived and went to the guy's house. Fueled by booze, obviously, I waited for him, intending to threaten the out of this dude to get him to stop supplying Stevie with the things that were going to kill him. It's lucky this guy never showed up. Lucky for him, of course, but also for me. Then we got an offer to play 4 shows in October 1989 as the opening act for the Rolling Stones at the LA Coliseum. It was a huge shot in the arm for us at the time, though that's probably a poor choice of idioms, given the situation in the run-up to the shows. Mick Jagger negotiated the terms of our gig himself and took care of all the details. We didn't deal with a Stones lawyer or agent or somebody like that. We expected to, of course. Nope. It was Mick. We would say, "We want this much per gig," and Mick would say, "No, you're going to get this much." Despite the work we now needed to do to prepare for the Stone shows, Slash and Steven showed no sign of pulling out of their drug habits, and Izzy slipped back into heroin use too. Sometimes those guys put their drug use in front of band practice. One or the other often showed up late or left early from rehearsal, if they showed up at all. But we never talked about the problem. We were never any good at communication, especially when that meant confrontation. If we could have developed those skills then, the story of GNR might have been very different. With the shows looming, the Los Angeles Times ran a big piece about us supposedly staking our claim in rock and dethroning the old guard. There is one thing that no band can ever do, and that is dethrone the Rolling Stones. That would have been true regardless of the state of our band. And I was very nervous about the state of our band going into the shows. The Times article seemed a bad omen to me. Later in life, I would be more apt to listen to that first instinct when committing to various things, but come on. This was a chance to open for the world's best. By the time of the actual shows, everything melted into the background because I was so excited. My brother Matt put together the horn section again to play along with a few tunes. He was student teaching. In the evenings before the shows, he came to the hotel where we were staying, got dressed, hung out in the hospitality room, and drove out to the Coliseum in one of the band's vans to get ready to play to tens of thousands of people. He told us during the day he saw kids with G&R cut into their arms at his school. By this point, the magnitude of our success was weird, not only for us, but for people around us as well. The Stones were great hosts. They hooked all our guests up, and the whole scene was charged. I flew my mom down for the shows. While she was in town, she picked up on the problems between me and Mandy. It was dispiriting to have a relationship I had taken seriously and had such high hopes for unraveling, and particularly for that disappointment to take concrete form in front of my mom. But for the moment, Guns N' Roses was playing with the Rolling Stones, a fact that could buoy me in the face of almost any personal setback. Guns N' Roses was playing with the Rolling Stones. Prior to the first show, Mick Jagger came up to me during sound check. I had on my cowboy boots as usual, and it was misty and drizzling. He motioned to my boots and said, "You're gonna wear those tonight, mate?" I shrugged and smiled. I wasn't sure if he was making fun of me or what. "You're gonna slip on our stage." This was the Steel Wheels tour, with an all-metal stage set. "I've got some trainers," he said. "What size do you wear?" 11, I said. "Me too," he said. "We must have the same size Willie." Wow, I thought. Mick Jagger says we have the same size Willie, and he's going to let me wear his sneakers. Despite his kind offer, though, I didn't wear them in the end. Mick was cool, but his spare sneakers, I'm afraid, were not. As showtime approached, Axl wasn't there, and everyone, us, the Stones people, were sweating and frantic. But he made it at the last minute. The first concert went off without a hitch, and I didn't slip on the metal stage. Sure, the guys were out of their minds, but I had family and good friends around me, and I did not really pay much attention to what was going on with those guys backstage. I knew that we should have had a band sit down before the gigs to get everything out on the table, but things had been moving too fast in the run-up to the shows. Then came the second night. Before we played our first note, Axl suddenly announced to the 80,000 people in attendance that if certain people in Guns N' Roses didn't stop dancing with Mr. Brownstone, this would be our last show. The crowd became absolutely quiet. People in the audience looked at one another. They seemed as confused as we were. They really had no idea what Axl was talking about. I shrank. I was so embarrassed. And I was so mad that Axl felt he could do this to me. I would have been supportive if he was sufficiently pissed off at certain guys to want to confront them for what was going on. I was with him. The situation was bad. But he needed to talk about that in private, not out here. Never out here. Once Axl took his concerns public, the times of being a gang, us against the world, were over. We played the rest of the show, but it was a half-hearted effort at best. Afterward, and really for the remainder of our career, we just went our separate ways. That night officially rang the bell for the end of an era in G&R. Well, that's the end of Chapter 21. Let me know what you thought of Chapter 21 in the comments below. That does it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I really appreciate the support. I'll see you next time. Till then, rock on.